All right. Hey guys, it's Andrew here again at Prehired, and I've got another story to share with you guys. And on the other side of the computer, I've got Jared with me today. He's in Pennsylvania. So, Jared, first off, thank you for taking a little bit out of your morning to share your story with us. Um, but we'll kind of start there. Just take a minute or two just to tell everyone a little about your background, maybe what you've done before getting into tech. I know you just started a little over a week ago with your new role,
Yeah,
but just kind of share a little about you, about your background, about who you are.
sure. So I started off, I've been like coaching and teaching like fitness, martial arts classes, like pretty much my whole life, like whether I'm teaching classes, doing membership sales. So that was like kind of like my introduction to like, I guess the sales world. Did sell cars for a little bit. So I have a couple different, you know, uh, experiences in a couple different avenues of sales. Car sales just really wasn't for me, so I ended up going back to gym membership sales because I guess that's more of my background anyway. And that pretty much led me up to signing up for pre-hire, just going between odd part-time jobs, coaching part-time, evenings, weekends, all that kind of fun
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, I hear you. I hear you. So what? I know you tried car sales, wasn't for you.
Mhm.
Went back to the gym sales. What got you interested in tech and software?
Well, definitely looking at like career paths was a big thing because I realized that even like when it comes to car sales, like the only job growth if you can be a sales manager, that's awesome. But otherwise, you're either just are going to be a good car salesman or you're going to be a bad car salesman. It's like the mobility is just within the role itself. Either have a really great year or a really bad year. And again, if that just wasn't necessarily for me. I like the idea of growing in a position and then looking at other positions, mobility, that kind of thing. Um, and then when I started doing research on different types of jobs, different types of sales jobs, pre-hired started coming up, and that made me actually just take that information and then look up, okay, is this the claims that were being made and stuff, and like, okay, software, different types of job prospects. Glassdoor I looked down a lot too, and just kind of like, okay, it's not just one thing. There's so many lateral steps and vertical steps you can make, and that really started to interest me.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head in terms of like car sales. It's you're either on the floor selling. I mean, you can do your internet sales on the phone, or you move up to the sales manager. There's not a lot of steps. Most people will just move in from one dealership to the other. And the big thing with roles like car sales, and maybe real estate or insurance versus tech sales, and we'll talk about this a little bit, is they're
Mhm.
very inconsistent. I've talked to a lot of
Yeah,
people that, hey, you can have a $8,000 month, and then next month you're making $800,
yeah,
if that. And it's that inconsistency. I don't think a lot of people really like that or enjoy that.
mhm.
Um, now, now you mentioned obviously, okay, so you started thinking about where do you want to go? Maybe tech, maybe this, maybe that. And then we popped up on your screen probably because of tech, because of
Mhm.
SEO, because of Facebook, all those great things. What were your kind of thoughts about when we popped up? Just and all I guess throughout you thinking about pre-ed and maybe through the conversation you had with our admissions team until you were admitted. What were your thoughts about us?
Yeah, so it was like one of those things again, like again, Facebook listening and all that stuff. So I just started getting flooded with ads and everything, and I reached out to a couple of them just to kind of get my feelers out because besides just applying for jobs on like just regular job boards, this was like, okay, these are actually places that are like we're gonna help in a way. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, and so it was, and initially it was all about the same for me. There was just a name, like, okay.
Yep.
And I started doing individual research and all that kind of good stuff. But one thing that like, and I was talking to Caleb, Jordan,
Hmm.
and he kept popping up and I could tell like, okay, these aren't just automated messages like, hey, what's going on? And I started like, okay. And so initially everything was again, very kind of like scary because you
Yeah.
have to do some kind of investment on my end. And I'm just like, was very wary of that. I really wasn't in a position where that was an option. And I'm like, and then the risk to reward was like, I'm not sure. So I guess what really stuck out was like talking about, and we can get into it in a minute if you want, like the ISA, like that idea that a lot of them were like, hey, we'll get you set up. It's going to be great, but we need this up front. And I'm like, whoa, like, oh, but you'll totally, when you get successful, you'll make it back in a day. I'm like, okay, yeah,
Yep.
that's awesome and all, but what are the what are the case studies of this, or what is like, and then the pre-hired approach was just so vastly different, where they're like, hey, look, we want you to succeed because that's kind of our whole business model.
How we
And
make
that
money.
just exactly. And that was actually some of the questions I started asking some of these other places, like, okay, well, how do you get success? And then that's what brings up the initial upfront. And for you guys, it's such a different approach. Like, and that one lowered the guard a little bit, like, okay, there's actually some investment, there's actually some stake in my success. And I think that really just made it an obvious choice for me.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, and for people listening that might not know what Jared's talking about, I say income share agreement. So we don't take anything up front. Because we're getting you a job in tech. We want to, for us doing that and not taking any money, we want a little piece of the pie, which I think everyone thinks is fair. So yeah, I mean, that's the way we work. And really, if you think about it, it's what I just said before, is our success depends on your success. We're going to get you hired and we're all going to be happy. We're all going to be making money. Or, the very small chance it's just not going to work out. But that's very, very few people that actually happens to. But yeah, our success definitely depends on your success. And obviously you just got a little bit of success. So we're all happy. So, and we'll talk about, where you're at right now with your job and all of that in a second. But I do want to talk about, after you said, okay, these guys are legit. Caleb's awesome. He's a nice guy. Shout out to Caleb. He's great. What was it like for you actually going through the program now? Because you had sales experience, and I already know tech is a lot different than what you did. Just in general, what was your experience going through the program like for you?
Yeah. So I guess like the initial, like going through the videos was like, that's what made it real to me too. Cause I even signed the agreements, like getting all excited, and I sat down in front of the computer, had the list of modules up, and I'm like, okay, well, I hope this is real, because you still don't know. It's like, okay, because it could be like here's a bunch of, hey, make sure when you're selling you're nice, and you don't. I'm like, okay, great. Like, but the detail in which I guess everything was presented was really impressive to me, and that's what I had a moment of, oh, okay, this is legit, like pretty fast. And that was a good thing for me, where I'm like, okay, these are actually going through, and again, having some formalized training in the sales process. And it was like, okay, that's consistent. I'm like, oh, that's a approach that I wish that they would have said. That makes more sense to me. Like, I guess a lot of my experience too was business to consumer. Well, this is more business to business related, but you're still dealing with people too. Yes. So it's just, but a lot of the approaches I thought, like, okay, that's legit. I like that. And then going through, it is a lot of information. So initially I'm just like trying to just go, absorb, because I want to get on to the process of, getting to the job process and pipeline. But I'm like, oh, wait, I got to slow down and actually absorb a lot of this information. It's like, how to download and use all these different softwares. I thought was really cool. I'm like, this isn't just this information just out there now. But like, look, they really are just saying, hey, here's everything you need to know. And it's useful, like doing even just like the simple stuff, like how to use Chrome. If you haven't ever used Google products, I mean, that is just useful for anybody realistically. Yeah. So I thought that aspect of it, like, all right, here's the basic, and now let's get into the actual process itself.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I love the tools part, and I think you're so right. I mean, I know how to create a Gmail, I know how to do this, but do you know how to do these little things in Drive, or and then talking about the tools like, HubSpot or this or that. Yeah. I mean, I've talked to so many people that have come from something like a car sales where they have a CRM, but they don't really use it, anything like that. And it's like, hey, you're not actually getting the full value of what these tools you do. And it's so cool to see people's eyes light up, like, oh my gosh, or just someone that's never been in sales. Like, I never knew I could get direct email addresses.
That was crazy.
I could automate emails, and still make them look great. And just the entire, or just in general, the job search. I thought I just had to go on Indeed and apply and wait for people to get back to me. And when it's like, nope, that's what most people do. Here's a different way. It really, it's very cool to see when someone realizes the power of all of it. And what you're going to be doing on the job, I know you just started, and I'm sure you're already saying, okay, hey, we did some of these things in pre-hire, this, that. Okay, it's all coming together. So I want to talk about that now, about the job search. After you got certified, what was the search like for you? Because I know, we were working together for pretty much all of it, but I just kind of want to hear in your own words, what was the search like for you from someone that was coming in from a, non-tech world. What was that like?
Yeah, sure. So I think, and I guess too, for someone who is watching this is like, and they're still on the fence, like I went through the full roller coaster of the emotions aspects. Like initially I had all the sequences set up. I had like a few dozen companies. I'm like, all right, I'm blasting all this out. I had a bunch of responses like immediately, a lot of opens. I'm just like tracking it, like, oh wow, here's everything that's going on. Oh, this CEO opened my email. Whoa. And it was like this whole thing, got to watch everything. And then, so that was awesome. Got some interaction with that. And then all of a sudden it just like stopped. And I'm like, oh no. And like, I still had things going on in the pipeline, but it was still like, all that initially, like I got certified, I got all these emails out, I was making all this progress, all of a sudden it just like stopped for a second. I'm like, oh, what's going on? Did I do something wrong? And then it came right back up on the backswing. It was like, honestly, it was probably a 2-day period where nothing was happening, but it felt like a lifetime because I was just like, all right, I got all these like Calendly invites. I'm like, okay, I got interviews set up. Okay, great. And then all of a sudden just silence. Yep. I'm like, oh no. Yeah. So that was like the low point, but then it started coming back up with different opportunities, and that was really cool. And actually a really cool story that happened to me during the job search, which I actually had talked to you about, was I got an email back from one of the startup companies that I had applied for, and the guy emailed me back, and I went for an interview right away. And he's like, well, to be honest with you, we really aren't hiring for anyone that doesn't have X level of experience. But I was really impressed with your outreach, that I still want you to come in and interview with me. And I thought that was kind of cool. He's like, look, I mean, just looking through, I honestly thought that you were a sales or marketing company that was reaching out to me to sell you your services to me. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, your outreach was professional, like all your customization, all that aspect of it. It sounded like you were just trying to sell me on, hey, I know how to do this really well. You should hire me for projects. And when really you were just looking for a job to work for us. So he was real. And I'm like, all right, well, that's kind of cool. That one aspect right there was like, okay, pre-hired. Here we go. Yeah. Good job.
Now, was this the company where you got to the final round? I don't want to say the company name. And all good. I think that's even cooler because, I mean, for people listening, like that goes to show, like, you really shouldn't have been interviewed. No. Like to begin, like if the guy basically was like, hey, we shouldn't have interviewed, but not only did you get the first, like you were and I know you're a little bummed about not getting it, but like you were very close to also getting an offer from a company that they really shouldn't have didn't want to technically interview from the beginning, which I think that's really, really cool to hear. It just goes to show, and especially for, people ask, oh, I don't have tech experience. I don't have this. I don't have that. Now, obviously I know you did end up, I guess you could say, losing out to someone that just had a little more experience, and that's going to happen. But just still, the fact that not only you were able to get into an interview where they shouldn't have, but get to the final round and impress them that much, I mean, you work at your current company for next 6 months, and hopefully you're there longer, but I'm sure you can probably go to that company later on and say, hey, I've got the experience now, and they'll most likely hire you. So
exactly. And I used it as such a great platform because that was my first string of interviews that led to the final round. And that was such a confidence booster for every single interview that I went on. And they say like the best time to sell is after you've made a sale. So like I was riding high on that, like, because I got an email back he was the lead SDR. I'm like, okay, great. He's like, I interviewed with him. He's like, okay, great. I'm going to send you a calendar invite. I'm going to have you come in and meet the team. I'm like, okay, great. And I'm imagining like meeting him, meeting a supervisor or something like that. He's like, all right, cool. Here's your list of interviewers. You have the CEO, the COO, and the head SDR team. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, I better wear my nice t-shirt. Like it was I'm like interviewing with a CEO and like C-suite executives to me was such like a foreign concept, something that I never would have applying on, Indeed.com. I'm not going to interview with the operations officer, So like that whole aspect. And then every subsequent interview just was, all right, I know how to talk. I know how to present myself. And then that's, I think, what led to the success that I got.
Without a doubt. So let's jump to where you're at right now. I know it's been probably about a week or 2 weeks since you started. Mm-hmm. Just kind of give a rundown of who you're working for and what you'll be doing for them.
Sure. So I'm working for Seven Figure Automation, and basically what they are is it's an SDR outbound. So they'll take small tech companies, anywhere between 49, I think, and 250 size. We have a smaller sales team, and then if they're having trouble with like their outbound, their prospecting, basically the definition of an SDR, they'll go to Seven Figure, assign themselves an account manager, which would be me, and then I work for that company and just drive leads, good, warm, quality, market qualified leads right to their salespeople. And then they like me a lot for that. So their salespeople do less prospecting, more of just selling their product. So it's kind of cool learning about all that right now.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome spot, and it's very similar for people listening or anyone, before Prehard, I worked for Josh, our founder. He had a company called 4Letter, which he had for a little over 3 years, which is very similar to Seven Figure, where he'd work with tech companies and act as SDRs, also do some AE work as well. But it helped me. I know you're going to grow so quickly there, because me personally, like working in something like that, interacting with multiple clients, it just skyrocketed, my career. The 1 year I really did it full time before Prehired, I felt like I was working for 3 or 4 years. So that's really going to benefit you a lot. I know that. Plus, I know it's remote, and I know you're looking for remote. So
yeah, the commute's nice.
Yep. I'm in for people who probably can't tell, I'm in gym shorts right now. I'm sure
Well, I made sure to rock casual Friday. I got the science-based sales shirt on.
I didn't even realize that. I don't know how it didn't cross my mind, but I love that. Awesome.
But yeah, because you and I had even talked, because I actually had 2 offers at the same time. One for a more, established company, and then one for a 7 figure, which was a little more of a startup. And the one, the more established company had a higher OTE. The base was about the same, but a potentially higher OTE. And you and I talked, and they're like, look, you're going to learn. And my whole point here is I'm not just here to learn. And again, people who are going into the program, maybe you're just looking for the job and you just want to get that better career. That's awesome. But for me personally, I was looking for that growth aspect. And I want to learn. I want to get into the nitty gritty of the industry and learn about it. And we've decided that, this particular position, I'm going to learn so much more, because it's growing. And
Exactly. Yeah. And I think a lot of people come in like, I want to make that 100,000. I want to make that. And it's going to happen. But I always tell people, like, what's 6 months? What's a year of you, like, I don't want to say, you could say grinding it out, but like getting into a good company where you're going to grow, because you have your whole lifetime to do really well. And if you get into a good spot, and that's why it was like, hey, I really think 7 figure is the better route, even though it's maybe a little less money in year one, the payout is going to be so much more beneficial long-term, because you're just going to have that much more of a skill set. And don't get me wrong, the other company that you got to offer from, they're a great company as well. But with that, it's everything's kind of in place. You're just really day in and day out doing these things. Here, you're going to help companies grow, which I just think is so much more valuable. And that's, again, why because it was so similar to 4Letter and similar to my background, I realized, okay, this is why I think it's a great fit. So
awesome.
I'm pumped for you. I'm excited. I guess just the last question for you, Jared, is I know you kind of mentioned it before throughout, but just for people listening, I know there's a lot of people that listen and, hey, should I do this? Should I not? We'll be the first to say this is not for everyone. I mean, what would you say, though, for people that are considering Prehired?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is what do they say? The job searching is a job, and I think that initially was surprising. Like, if you think about how most people passively look for new jobs or something like that, and you're just like, you'll send applications out, maybe you'll get something back, and you hope. This is and I think, and when I've been describing the program to people too, it's like, the process itself is what you'll be doing. So that whole aspect of it to me was just like, all right, that was number 2 light bulb where I'm like, all right, this is actually something good. So for people who are like on the fence, like, yeah, you're going to have to work for it, but that also, I think, inherently makes it more legitimate. Like, if you actually want something real, you're going to do something real to get there. If you want just some passing by loose, something that's not going to be what you are actually looking for, then sure, passively look for stuff. But if you want to do something, you have to do something to get there, and
exactly.
I think it works.
Yeah. I mean, you're 100% right. Like, this is not easy. Like you said, it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of information. It takes a lot of time. It's not the passive, hey, let me scroll in bed on my phone on Indeed and let me just throw out a couple applications. If that's what you're looking for, Prehired is not for you at all. Just not for you. You're not going to be successful. But if you are willing to put in that work, because you're going to have to put in a lot of time, day in and day. I mean, this is not a full-time job, but it's definitely like a part-time job. And this is not something that can be pushed to the side because you're
Mhm.
not going to be successful. You obviously did not push it to the side. You made this a part of your life for the
Oh
past
yeah.
2 to 3 months, and it paid off without a doubt. And now it's going to pay off long term. So I 100% agree with everything you said. But that's about it, Jared. I appreciate you taking the time to share your story with us, man. I'm looking
Awesome.
forward to just hearing how the next couple months, really, next year, 2 years, and so on, are with with Seven Figure, and where wherever you do eventually end up, or if you're there for a long term. So definitely stay in touch with us, and let me or anyone on the team know if you have any questions.
You got it. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate it.
All right, later.
See you, man.